Digital Reflection Presentation, Healthcare Reform in the United States of America by DTIMMONS2. Professor Susan Leroy, IDS 101 Cornerstone Seminar. Semester and year, fall 2019. Healthcare Reform in the United States of America. Visual display. Healthcare reform in America. Many Americans do not have the basic healthcare insurance. Lawmakers and politicians group are trying their hardest to make sure that all Americans are insured. And the statement is healthcare insurance is a right, not a benefit, that all Americans have. My research is relevant to me is because it gives me a compelling argument that healthcare reform is very much needed and that all Americans are entitled to those rights. The fact that I present in this research paper are from credible sources that support my thesis, that which I have. The long road to healthcare reform. Healthcare reform is a long process in the making. It took more than 75 years for healthcare to benefit its people. Quote, World Medical Journal states, beginning in 1912 and continuing throughout the 20th century, many American presidents from Theodore Roosevelt to Bill Clinton tried healthcare reform in the disparity of minorities, children, mental illness, and seniors are not insured. Quote, Francisca states, healthcare disparities relate to race, ethnicity, social economic. While the government is fighting over healthcare reform, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is leading by example. Quote, Mechanic states, policymakers and private healthcare plans are expanding their efforts to implement new plans, models that will encourage. Counter argument for healthcare reform in America is that it has many pitfalls. One of the many pitfalls of healthcare reform is the need for a robust primary care system, and what about the remaining 23 million uninsured that cannot afford healthcare in general. Furthermore, about the response to the opponent's counter argument of healthcare in America, the government has made many efforts by getting organizations such as the American Medical Association to make the cost-sharing obligations under the exchange plan with high deductible. The alternative solution to the opponent's argument about healthcare reform in America. One of the solutions to the opponent's argument is that organizations such as the American Medical Association will be steadfast in advocating for the core principles and priorities that would have long stood for when it comes to the conclusion about healthcare reform in America. Overall, healthcare insurance reform for all Americans is a right, not a benefit. And the more this nation understands this type of thinking, it will better improve the healthcare system. If it means my thoughts on my research paper on healthcare reform in America. As I look back on my research topic and the things that I learned along the way, is that I learned a lot about the issues of healthcare reform and what it takes to combat the issue. I learned that minorities, children, seniors are never fairly represented in this country. And reflection on the course. My reflection on this course was very challenging for me because writing is not one of my strengths. I always write as I speak, and I know that is not correct. Another issue that I have is that I mix up my plurals and my adjectives, and sometimes I really need to work on that. Works cited reference. All things imaged in this presentation are taken from Plex. They are licensed under the Creative Commons Zero license, Plex. Learn about the Creative Commons license. Hefner, Jennifer McAllen, and